Welcome back to another episode of Going For It. It is your podcast homies, the boys who mock me and Mike Spillane hanging out, bringing some more draft content to your ear holes. This is going to be Giants specific. So if you are not interested in the New York Giants or some possible chatter about the first 6 picks in the draft, this is probably not going to be one for you. If you want to listen, we appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. But if you are not interested in this, click off, man. No shame in our game. We are okay with it. Let us know who you would like us to talk about and feature. But this being our first year, we're going to do the stuff that we want to talk about. So, Mike, the Giants are in one of the more interesting positions than I think they've been in for quite some time in an NFL draft, because they have some pieces. It looks like they're trying to build a defense. The offensive side of the ball is a little lacking, especially losing Saquon Barkley in free agency. They have a high pick. There's a lot of really high end talent in this draft to this point. So, talk to me about options, things that you're looking out for, things that you've read, heard, etc.
So as you know, we have all of the sources. Everyone gives us all of the information, and we know everything.
Schefter answers to us.
Yeah. So if you want to know what to bet on, this is the conversation. I'm obviously kidding. We know nothing. We're just a couple schmoes. We read what we find on the internet. We are usually smart enough to decipher what's real and what's bullshit, but it's the week of the draft, and one of the things that they say is the week of the draft is don't believe anything that you read, because everyone is putting shit out there in hopes that no one knows what their plan is, so that way they can, go enact what they want to enact. But realistically, I can see this draft going about 4 different ways for the Giants. And it's wild to think that there's probably 4 different outcomes that could happen. Realistically, 5 different outcomes, because there's still people out there that think that the Giants will go offensive line at 6. But I don't see it. So for me, the most probable outcome is the Giants stay where they're at and they draft a wide receiver, whether that be Marvin Harrison Jr. if he somehow falls, if that is Malik Neighbors, or if that's Rome Odunze. I think the most likely scenario is we're drafting a wide receiver. Second most likely scenario, I think, is that they trade up to number 3 with the Patriots because the quarterback that they want is still available after the first 2 picks. What kind of offer do they have to put out there? Talking Giants today put out something saying, well, okay, what if they offer 6, 47, and then next year's first and second? To me, to move up 3 spots, that's rich. But if it's your guy, we've mentioned this before. If it's your guy, go get your guy. If it's a price that you're willing to pay to get a guy that you are in love with, because that's the key differentiating factor when it comes to this kind of thing. If you're making this decision, you can't be in like with this player. You have to be in love with this player to trade up, give up future draft picks to go and get that person. So if you're in love with this person, and in this situation, I assume that person is Drake May. Judging based off of what we know as being Giants fans and what we're paying attention to, I think they went and watched him 8 times in the past year in North Carolina.
I think it was legitimately 8 times.
They had a top 30 visit with him. He did private workouts for them. Yes, they did some things with J.J. McCarthy, but for me, I think the J.J. McCarthy interest is more of a smokescreen. Especially because of the fact that they took J.J. McCarthy out on a very important timeline. I think they took him out on Easter Sunday for dinner or something like that. Showing that they're willing to go out on a holiday and kind of stuff to get him involved. I think that was more so a strategic ruse to be like, okay, the Giants are in play for J.J. McCarthy at 6 to try and get someone to jump ahead of them, so that way, they'll get something of what they want. So I think those are the two most likely scenarios. Is they try and trade up to they either stay put and draft a wide receiver, which is what if I was a betting man, that is probably what I would bet on. If then the second scenario would be trading up or to try and get a quarterback. The third scenario, which I think is less likely, is that they stay put and draft a quarterback. I just don't know that one of the top three, or even four quarterbacks, if you count JJ McCarthy, I just don't know that they're going to be there at 6, depending on how the board falls. That's why I think it's relatively unlikely. And then the other scenario that's been pitched, and this is due to rumors that are out there, is the Giants trading back. What happens if the first 5 picks end up going Williams, Daniels, May, and then you end up losing Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, and you don't believe that the value is there to draft JJ McCarthy at 6, and Rome Odunze also feels a little bit rich there at the same time. Is there an option for you to go ahead and trade back? One of the things that was pitched out there is, okay, Denver has apparently said that there was a possibility that they would want to give up a king's ransom to move up to get their quarterback, which a lot of people believe that their quarterback is JJ McCarthy. And if that king's ransom is giving up pick 12, a first rounder next year, and Patrick Surtain, if I'm the Giants, I make that fucking trade 10 times out of 10 times, especially if the board falls the way that I said it might, where you don't have an option to get Malik Neighbors. Yes, Rome Odunze is good, but there's still a probability that Rome Odunze could fall to 12. Or if you end up getting that king's ransom, you could trade back up to 9 to get Odunze. Arizona literally did that last year. They traded back for the haul that they used to get CJ Stroud, or for Houston to get CJ Stroud, if I remember correctly. And then they traded back up to go ahead and get another player that they wanted. So these kind of things are super, super plausible. The only reason that's fresh in my mind is because they said that they're kind of open for business, and Adam Schefter posted the insider video of Monty Ossenfort of Arizona going through the phone calls and doing all of the stuff last year.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to hear these guys say that they're open for business. A lot of what's being said, I listened to a Giants pod that was done this morning by John Schmelk of the New York Giants. Was hired by the team, and he had a draft expert on, and he said the draft expert said that he's putting money in the same way that you are, that like Jaden Daniels is going to go 2 to Washington, and Daniels was New England's preferred quarterback through this whole process, so he could see New England trading out, but it's going to take a big haul to get them to move out of that spot because they want a quarterback. Apparently Robert Kraft wants a quarterback, where we've also said this multiple times in this, and I'm a big proponent of this. I don't think bringing a quarterback in at this point for New England is a good idea. I think you have too many holes in too many important places that if you're bringing in a Drake May or a JJ McCarthy, they're not going to do good things for you. Your offensive line is abysmal. I can say that because we've had the worst offensive line in football for like a decade. And everything I've read, especially recently, explains why May is falling down draft boards. It's because he's missing a lot of those, I say little things, but they're not little. His consistency with footwork, his, repetition in his throwing motion and things like that. A lot of those things were rushed because he was behind a really bad offensive line, and I understand that. But most every draft expert says it's going to take a full year for May to get acclimated to the pro game. I don't think New England is the place to cultivate that. Those fans are going to want him to start day one. If you use pick number 3 on him, they're going to want you to start him day one. And I just don't think that that's going to put him in an advantageous position. I think Minnesota even more so, because they're going to put the pressure of, you have to start day one. We need to be competitive in this division. If you're not good, Justin Jefferson's going to walk next offseason. Like there is skin in the game if he goes to Minnesota, which is why I think they prefer JJ McCarthy, but there's not a good situation for him outside of, I think, the Giants. I think the Giants, with DJ having Locke, Tommy touchdowns, played a little bit of football last year. They have a buffer where they can let him sit for a year and be like, look, we know we got this guy at 6, but we want to make sure that the offensive line is secure. We want to put some pieces around him. We're not going to be competitive in this division this year. Philadelphia, this is their division to win. So, like, I think that this is a really good landing spot for Drake if they are to go that route. I just don't know how much I'm willing to give up.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part about it is, like, what do you say is the right price? Because, like, for me, if you're giving up a first and a second this year and a first and a second next year, to move up 3 spots, that's just
too
too
much.
Rich. Like,
That's too
if
much.
it's if we're talking about Minnesota, who's offering probably their 2 firsts that they have this year, and like
Probably
a
the first next year too.
That's probably the right price for them to move up, considering the fact that that's 3 first-round picks. But I just don't think that. But that's also moving up 8 spots.
And you're dropping out of the top 10. You are dropping out of the top 10 where there is this abundance of talent. Like, these top 10 picks are guys that could have went number 1 in any of the past drafts.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what show it was I was listening to where I ended up hearing them saying this. I don't remember if it was. I don't think it was NFL Stock Exchange. I think it was something else. But it was when they were having the conversation. What they were saying basically is, how far is New England willing to drop? Because there are probably 10 players in this draft that they are saying that they think that they would classify as being day 1 starters guaranteed, who have the possibility of being all pros. Once you get past those 10 players, is it worth it for you to trade that far back regardless of the return? And realistically, if you're trading back to 11, yeah, you might be getting another pick this year at 23, but does that overall set you up better than getting a guaranteed, like, say, potential of Joe Alt at 6? Is Joe Alt better than who you might draft at 11? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is Joe Alt better than the combination of who you might draft at 11 and 23? Potentially.
Possibly.
So I feel like that's just the really big debate that's going to be had, because you know me, I'm very much of the same ilk of you. The Patriots' offensive line is one of the worst. They did a good job of retaining their one free agent who was likely to be desired, which credit to them for that.
It's true.
But their defense is not great. Their offensive line is abysmal, and they're the only team that I think that I can look at and say, man, their wide receiver core is worse than the Giants. Who's their running? Do they still have Ramondre Stevenson? Is he still under contract?
Still Ramondre, yeah.
But then they lost Zeke Elliott, who was their backup and was a bell cow for points of last year.
Didn't all that stuff leak about Juju last year too, where it was like, his knee's gonna go, we just don't know when.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I really don't know how to.
It's not great.
No, it's not, and it's one of those things that, like, I feel like, as much as I dislike the Patriots, I feel like the league is usually better when they're, it seems like they're a team that's competitive. Especially considering the fact that, like, they're in a division right now that is one of the better divisions that people care about, with the fact that you have a lot of eyes on the Jets due to Aaron Rodgers being there, however you feel about Aaron Rodgers. The Miami Dolphins have one of the most fun offenses in the league. And the Buffalo Bills have been one of the top AFC contenders outside of the Chiefs for the past 5 years as well. The Patriots being this down bad while the rest of the teams around them are significantly better is honestly shocking, given what we've grown to know over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is, like, I think they want to build it back and they want to get back to that precipice, and I respect the shit out of that. And I think I think that there's ways you need to do it, and I don't think overdrafting a quarterback here is going to set you up for that. So just looking at their offensive depth chart, I pulled it up on ESPN. Their starters, Jacoby Brissett. He's fine. He's not going to win you games. He's not going to lose you games. You'll be competitive as long as your defenses. Ramondre Stevenson is their running back. They also signed Antonio Gibson, so that's a receiving option out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Starting wide receivers: Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, KJ Osborne.
It's not good. It's very not good.
They also have Tyquan Thornton, TJ Luther, Jalen Rager, and Kawan Baker, who is someone I don't know who that is.
No offense, Kawan.
No offense, man. You're a stud. You're better at this thing than I could ever be at anything else, but I don't know your name. They have Hunter Henry at tight end, Austin Hooper backing him up.
They lost Jonnu Smith, right?
They did lose Jonnu Smith. And then it's just a bunch of Chukwuma Okafor is their left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
It'd sound way better if Joe Alt was there. Cole Strange, their left guard. David Andrews is their center. Sidi Sow, right guard. And Mike Onwenu is their right tackle.
And that was the one that they were worried about losing in free agency, but they were able to retain him because he was the only super,
good offensive lineman.
Not even super good, but, worth retaining.
Right. So it's just you want to bring in a rookie quarter. I don't care if it's Caleb Williams. It's not going to be, but I don't care if it's Caleb Williams. You don't want to bring a rookie quarterback into that. So I think if I'm the Patriots, and I know we're talking about the Giants, but if I'm the Patriots here, I drop to 6 and I take either Alt or Neighbors because one of the two is going to be there. And maybe both are there, depending on what the Cardinals do. And it's just, you set the next guy to come in up well. You set him up appropriately to be able to do his thing. And you only had to fall 3 places. So it just feels like it's a win-win for them and for the Giants. I like you said, I'm not willing to give up that draft capital because there are so many holes for the Giants. A first next year is not even, to move up 3 spots is not in the negotiation for me because of the holes. I understand value, quarterback value, all that stuff. If you asked me earlier in the offseason, I would have said absolutely. But because they have so few picks in this draft, and I expect Joe Shane to move around and acquire picks for this year and next year.
6.
Yeah.
6. Fingers
Numbers are hard.
I lost blood today, okay? I'm telling you.
I expect them to move up and down this draft to get pieces and whatever, but there's so many holes. We don't have a second starting corner. We don't have any. We have one starting safety from last year, and Pinnock is good. He's not great. He's not excellent. He's not an All-Pro. He's fine.
Pinnock isn't a kind of player that I'm looking at and be like, I'm not worried if we don't really draft at that other position because he still needs assistance in coverage.
Right. So
he's not a game changer. It's not like the one we lost in free agency, Xavier McKinney. If we only had Xavier McKinney back there and Pinnock was on an island or something like that, I wouldn't care as much because of the fact that Xavier McKinney covers ground better. I hope that he does well in Green Bay, I guess.
Of $17 million, I would not have paid him that. So I get it.
There's reasons why we didn't retain him. It was too much money for a safety.
It's too much money. It's too much money. But then you look on the offensive side of the ball, and they have holes along the offensive line. We think they went and tried to patch some of that this offseason. We'll see how that goes. But they have some holes along the offensive line. They have a giant hole at tight end. Even if Darren Waller comes back, he's missing 6, 8, 10 games this year, no matter what. Yep. There's a hole at quarterback. There's a hole at running back. I like Devin Singletary. He's not a workhorse back. He's not a number 1. They don't have that guy right now. They have no X wide receiver. They have there are pieces that need to be added to this team. And if you give up your first next year, and this is the little asterisk I'll put in it, and don't get at least a second back from New England, if you don't do first, second, first, and at least get their second back next year, it's a no-go for me, because there's just too much talent that we're missing. If we had a defense that was a little further along, if Trey Hawkins looks better the second half of last season, if we had a stud safety prospect coming in like Dane Belton looks okay, but
if Aaron Robinson has ever been healthy, like
if he existed, that would be cool. If any of that stuff happened, I'm in. You got me. I'm hooked. Like, do it. Trade the pieces. But for me, you can't continue to trade those things away and have Daniel Jones be your quarterback with what's around him currently, because he is not, in my opinion, and this is what I want to go to next, a starting quarterback in the NFL. He is a clipboard quarterback. He can come in an injury instance, win you a game, probably win you a couple weeks. To be honest, he's probably a really good backup, but he is not a starting quarterback in the NFL based on what we've seen from this man in his career.
Yeah. No, and that's, I mean, I know a lot of people are always going to say, in regards to Daniel Jones, they're going to say, well, he hasn't been given the opportunity. They changed coaches too much. He's never had an offensive line. He's never had weapons. Yep. All these things are true.
That's true.
All of that is 100% true. But there's also a time where you have to just admit, maybe we fucked this kid up to the point to where there's no return. And I think that's the point that they're at. And John Mara has been on record as saying that he feels sorry that they've probably done wrong by Daniel Jones. And I feel like that's why there's such an attachment from the Maras to, we want to keep him around because we feel bad of what we did to his trajectory. But at the same time, you gave him all this money because he had one fluke season where he did well. Past year, he regressed back to the mean and also got injured 3 times. Missed significant game time. And at that point, like, John Mara has basically said that the front office has his blessing if they want to draft a quarterback. I don't know why a thumbs up just popped up, or thumbs down popped up on your screen.
I don't know.
I think you did something like that, and it just automatically did it for you because you have an Apple.
Burped.
But, whatever. Like, if you make a heart with your hands right now, it's going to end up popping hearts on your screen. I guarantee it.
Hell yeah, that's for you, bro.
Yeah, it's a thing that Apples do. I found out about that.
It's stupid. I hate it. Anyway.
But anywho, love you. Love
it, girl.
Yeah, but so we're at a point now where John Mara has basically given the front office's blessing to go ahead, and if you want to draft a quarterback, go ahead and draft a quarterback. And I think that if it's their guy, that's what's going to happen. They're going to get their guy if they want to, because realistically, they know their job depends on it. Like, they were in a tough situation. You can argue they made the wrong choice last year when it came to the tag or extend of Saquon and Jones. It's very fair to say that they probably made the wrong choice when it came to that. But now it's time to, okay, those choices were made. Don't sit on those incorrect choices for too long. Make the move. Correct the wrong that you made.
Yeah, and for me, it's just, if you still think Daniel Jones is a guy, let him go to an organization that hasn't driven him into the dirt 1,000 times in 5 and 6 years. Like, let him go somewhere where he's going to be given the opportunity to succeed and, like, do his thing, because it's not here. From what, and again, everything you said and everything that everyone says in defense of him, like not having a number 1 wide receiver, not having all of these things, an offensive line, not all of that is completely true. He's had a top 5 running back in the NFL, though, one that catches passes, one that runs and breaks tackles and does those things. He had Darren Waller last year, and couldn't get him the ball enough in spaces. Darren Waller also injury prone. So he is a game manager at his peak. He is no longer that guy in the Pat Shermer offense where he was taking deep shots down the field, throwing up 50-50 balls. He's not that guy anymore. Joe Judge broke him of that because he wanted him to play safe, error-free football. And you're not going to survive in this league if you don't throw bombs downfield. You need to keep the defense honest, especially now that you don't have Saquon Barkley. Especially now that you don't have Saquon Barkley, that defensive line is going to pin its ears back and it's going to come after you. And unless you make them respect your game and your ability to read the rush, you're fucked. And that's one of the things we learned last year is this dude cannot read the line. He cannot read the defense. He does not audible well. He doesn't read hots well. Like, that is one of the things we learned about him last year. He did not have a lot of time to throw the ball, but he had options. He had checkdowns. He had slants. He had, people wide open in the middle of the field, but it wasn't his first read, so he never got there. That's not going to win you games.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like to go ahead and kind of push back when people bring up the stats of, how many times he was sacked and how little time he had to throw. It's funny because he was still sacked more like per dropbacks, I think, than he was more than Tyrod Taylor, because Tyrod Taylor was much more of a smarter decision maker when it came to the ball in his hand. I don't think it was the same as Tommy DeVito, because let's call a spade. Like, yeah, he won us some games, but Tommy DeVito is not a very good quarterback. No. I don't fight with me in the comments, argue with the wall. I really don't care. Like, Tommy DeVito is not an NFL caliber quarterback.
No.
But Tyrod, on the other hand, he was willing to get the ball out quick, make decisions, make reads, and he made a couple of plays. He had a farther depth of target. He had less sacks. And there was much more sacks that were caused by quarterback decision-making on the Daniel Jones side than any of the other quarterbacks that we had. So it's one of those things that, it kind of showed yes, the offensive line wasn't good, but his decision-making was still poor. And that's a problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you need to hear players on the other team talk about how they look forward to facing your quarterback for you to go, maybe this guy isn't the right guy?
Yeah.
Like, what's this? The rookie corner in Seattle last year ran his mouth and was like, we wanted this game. Like, we knew we were going to be able to get Daniel Jones, and I knew I was going to be able to pick him. I knew we were going to, and like, that was a winnable game that they lost because Daniel Jones lost. There was a pass interference non-call, but like, there was also a 97-yard interception return for a touchdown. So
and that play is one of the like two bad memories of Daniel Jones that is burned into my brain.
Is the other one the Philly one?
No, the first. Well, okay, three bad images. One of them is the trip on what would have been a 90-yard touchdown rush against Philly, but ended up being an 86-yard rush because he tripped at the 10. The second one is the night that he was drafted, and Mike Golick Jr. and Mina Kimes' reaction to, I can't believe the Giants fucking did that. When they did not have to. Granted, it meant that we got Dexter Lawrence at 17, which is fine, but because he worked out well. But we also could have drafted Josh Allen at 6, and then had Daniel Jones at 17. And either way, we still would have had an all-pro defender on the defensive line, and we probably would have been a little bit less harsh on Daniel Jones if we drafted him at 17. And then the third one is the image of, I was watching the Manning cast because that was a Monday Night Football game. And it was the reaction of Peyton and Eli Manning just stunned silent at how bad of a fucking read and throw that was. Of them doing exactly what you're doing right there. Because they couldn't fucking believe that just happened.
Look, I went on, I say it on our pods all the time. I went all in on Daniel Jones. I went and I got a nice, jersey card auto, on card auto. I got a mini helmet autograph from him, and they're on my shelves behind me. Like I wanted DJ to succeed. I really, really did. It's not going to happen here. He's not the guy for here. And if they have the opportunity to get a Drake May to be able to start the clock over again, to be able to acquire more assets, they are close to a defense. If you get a corner in here, if you get some safety help, this team and a nickel corner, this team is close. This defensive line is gross. If this D line is healthy, they're gonna eat a little bit, and I'm excited about it. Bobby Okereke was low key one of the best offseason signings in the NFL last year. Like it's coming, but
and also
that offense needs pieces.
And that's the thing too. Like I just want to kind of piggyback off of that because of the praise for Okereke. It also made a guy like Micah McFadden a better player too. Like Micah McFadden was a low key, very under the radar, really good linebacker last year playing next to Okereke. And then they upgraded the injury prone Azeez Ojulari by bringing in Brian Burns, who's an all-pro. They gave him money, so he's going to be there for a while, alongside Kayvon Thibodeau with Dexter Lawrence still in the middle. So you have a potential of having 3 all-pros on that defensive line, plus an all-pro linebacker. A first-round draft pick at corner last year who did a very good job and very under-the-radar good job because he's not a big interceptions corner, but he is a very good lockdown corner where he's not going to let people get easy catches. Excuse me. So I like the direction that the defense is heading. And I agree with everything that you're saying there, but like that's the thing is if you get something going on the offense, then there's a possibility that things can turn around faster. But you gotta get that spark for it to happen. And I don't see that spark happening with Daniel Jones. Even if you get him a number 1 receiver at 6.
Right, because he still needs to hit him. He still needs to target him. He still needs to hit him. And like Richie James can't be your number 1 most targeted player. Like that's just not. The dude runs crosses. That's all he does is run crosses over the center of the field. Like you can't just your average depth of target can't be like 4 yards. That's not going to get it done, man. It's not going to get it done.
And that's part of the reason why. Like I know you sent me the maps on Pro Football Focus because you paid for it so that way we can draft simulations. Like a lot of people talk about like maybe the Giants should go after a guy like Bo Nix. If you look at the average depth of target for Bo Nix, it's the same as what we've been getting with Daniel Jones. He plays in that air raid offense where he's mostly doing dink and dunks, and then he's occasionally throwing a bomb. He does have the arm strength to throw a bomb, although that bomb might be a little bit wobbly.
Super wobbly.
But so much of 65% of the yards that he's throwing are yak. Like it's only 35% of it is yardage through the air. Like it's one of those things that it's astoundingly similar to what we already have that I don't understand. And then like I'm gonna get on a soapbox here for a little bit.
Do it.
Because
get on the soapbox.
I do like Michael Penix Jr. Okay. But we're already dealing with an injury-prone quarterback in Daniel Jones. While Michael Penix Jr. got a clean bill of health at the combine and his workout at his pro day was fantastic, and he showed that he was arguably got one of the better arms, if not the best arm in the draft, outside of Caleb Williams. He's had 3 seasons that have been ended with season-ending injuries. 1 to his shoulder, 2 to his knees. Like that's something that is a risk if you want to go ahead and take a player like that. And that's something that if we're already dealing with an injury-prone quarterback, do we really want to sit here and say, let's take another injury-prone quarterback? And then the other thing to keep in mind that I feel like people are kind of like just forgetting about when they think of Michael Penix Jr. is he's a left-handed quarterback. So his blind side is being protected by Evan Neal. And as much as we all want Evan Neal to get better, and we're hoping that under Carmen Brusilla, the offensive line is going to be better, it completely nullifies the amount of money and effort that you put into a guy like Andrew Thomas. Because Andrew Thomas is an absolute stud, and now we're going to be at the point to where it doesn't really matter too much because he's not protecting the blind side of the quarterback anymore, which is the most valuable position to have. So, like,
Ask Lawrence Taylor. Sorry, it's been a long day. We're talking about Andrew Thomas, Lawrence Taylor.
I'm with you. But yeah, I mean, kind of going back just to bring it back to draft and whatnot. When we were kind of going through, and we did the draft simulation last time around, if I recall correctly, we ended up doing a first, or we did 6, a third this year, and a second next year. And Pro Football Focus accepted it. Because we didn't force it. Pro Football Focus accepted it.
That's correct.
So, do I think that that's enough? I mean, I would hope so, but at the same time, it's a move up for a quarterback. It is well known that there is a quarterback tax in the league. If you're trading up for a quarterback, they're going to try and charge you more for it. It's just the way that it is. So, but yeah, it's definitely something that's very, very interesting to think about from a Giants perspective as to, what could end up happening, what they end up doing.
Well, so then let's pivot, even though we're 36 minutes in to our just Giants conversation, really. And I want to pivot and talk about other options if they don't trade up to 3 or 4 or apparently 5. All of these picks are available. It sounds like Arizona's Ozzy, his name jumped out of my head.
Monty Awesome
Monty, yeah. So he also made the statement today that the Patriots, Eric Wolf, has been banging the drum on that we're open for business, we're available, like we're taking calls.
I did hear something with the Patriots is that even though it's Elliot Wolf's show, that Robert Kraft will be involved in any trade talks, which I feel like that has to annoy Patriots fans to a certain degree. That's like hearing, the Cowboys being like, yeah, no, Jerry Jones is involved in negotiations, and then they're just sitting here like, oh God, not again. So,
well, to me, it just feels like if you're going to do that with Robert Kraft, then what did getting rid of Bill Belichick really solve? Nothing.
Yeah.
Because nobody different is in charge. Like, you have a new head coach who's not as good as Bill Belichick is, and I don't care. Like, Gerard Mayo can be the second coming of Bill Parcells. He's not as good as Bill Belichick, and like, you're gonna let Robert Kraft sit in and make decisions where it's like, hey, are you okay with this, Mr. Kraft? And if he goes no, it doesn't matter. So, like, it's very Jets to me. It's very like Woody has the end all be all say. Joe Douglas can pretend and say that like he wants to go offensive line because that's what should be done. But if Woody bangs the table and says, I want Brock Bowers, guess who's going at 10? Fucking Brock Bowers.
Woody's like, I already got the gold chain made.
Yeah. Oh my God. So
I don't know why I made Woody Johnson sound kind of like W. I already got the gold chain. Look at me. Come on, Dad.
Look at me. Texas Rangers forever. The Patriots rebuild just if they go quarterback in this draft and don't attempt to move out for other things, their rebuild is off to a bad start. I want to be on record for that. April 22nd at 9:51 p.m. I want to be on the record if they go quarterback and it's a developmental guy, if it's Drake May, if it's if Jaden Daniels doesn't go second and they take Jaden Daniels, I am very concerned about 1, the quarterback, and 2, the franchise. I do not think that is going to be good for their rebuild. But if the Giants were to stay at 6, I firmly believe that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks that go in the first 5 picks.
Yeah.
I believe it. It's going to happen. It's going to be insane. I think there's going to be 6 quarterbacks that go in round 1. I really think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I did take a look today to see if you could. They updated the Hard Rock Sportsbook to have more like draft options on it down here. And I was like, I wonder if I could parlay some things together because they had options of over under where this person's picked, and I'm like, ooh, that's a fun game to play. So I was like, I got a $10 bonus bet. I was like, can I parlay a couple of these things together? And apparently you can't, because 2 of them were over under 32.5 for Penix and Knicks, and I would have taken the under on both of them.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, yeah, there's rumor that Panic's going before 11. That's what I heard today. So
I mean, I can see 13, but interesting. There was also rumors that the Falcons might be interested in him, and you just
I don't
gave
get that.
Kirk Cousins 3 years worth of guaranteed money. Like,
That's not gonna happen.
Why draft a 25, almost 25-year-old
They might not even get
rookie?
their pick. So they might not even get their first round.
We'll find out about that this week, I'm sure. So
yeah,
tampering.
Anyway, so there's going to be 4 quarterbacks that go in the first 5 picks. I think that you're spot on. One of the guy that was on the Giants podcast today, the draft expert, said that everything he's heard is that if the Chargers stay at 5, they're going Joe Alt. It's happening. That's who Harbaugh wants. And you called that months ago. You've been on this train of like, this is the most Harbaugh thing that Harbaugh could Harbaugh. And like, yes, absolutely. It's absolutely going to happen. So at 6, that would leave the Giants in a very interesting situation. Again, I did mention Darren Waller. So Brock Bowers will be there. You will have all 3 wide receivers there. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. You'll have any pick of defensive players because no one will have gone off the board defensively yet. What are you doing in that scenario? Are you looking for a trade back, trying to obtain some assets, maybe go to like if Chicago's interested in moving up or someone else is interested and try to get in one of the end ones? Or what are you doing in that scenario?
Okay, so your scenario, quarterback goes 1, 2, 3, 4 because Arizona trades out and Alt goes at 5. If I'm in that position, there is a 138% chance that you stay there and you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I will say that in my opinion, there is only one prospect in this draft that I look at as being a gold jacket prospect, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got the possibility of being a Hall of Famer, and I feel it deep in my soul that he has Hall of Fame potential. And for that reason, I wouldn't think twice if Marvin Harrison falls there at 6 and there's no quarterback on the board that you want. Everything else doesn't go the way that you wanted it to. You take Marvin Harrison Jr. and you don't look back. You run the card up there at that point. I mean, you could go ahead and take a listen to see what kind of offers are going to be out there, because realistically, at 6, for the best receiver in the draft and one of the best prospects, the offers that you're going to get are likely going to be absurd.
Very likely, yeah.
So it's since that you're going to be likely to be looking at absurd offers, you should listen to see if they're going to give you anything that's absolutely utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I don't know that I answer the phone, like, because realistically, the Denver offer that would include Patrick Surtain, they're not moving up for a wide receiver. Like, their wide receiver core is definitely not good, especially since they got rid of Jerry Jeudy. Not that he was really a number 1 guy.
Sure.
But their wide receiver core, especially now, is not great. But trading up and losing all those assets for them just to get a wide receiver doesn't make sense. And their quarterback room is now, they traded for Zach Wilson today.
Yeah.
So they have Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and Ben DiNucci. And I thought our quarterback room was pretty bad, but like
31st now, baby.
Yeah, that's something. So I don't really have the words to quantify that aside from bad.
Bad.
But yeah, if I'm in that situation, you take Marvin Harrison Jr., you don't think twice about it, and you just got a possible future Hall of Fame wide receiver, and you're content with it.
Yeah, the rumor is that Arizona, I know this was a couple weeks ago, but Arizona was looking for 3 1s to come out of the 4 spot and if they don't get 3 1s, the rumor was that they were not willing to drop that spot because they want Marvin Harrison Jr., which makes perfect sense for Kyler.
Yeah.
But if they do get those 3 1s, because as we've said, Minnesota made that trade with Houston, that is the reason they made this trade with Houston, so they could have 2 firsts in this draft. They have a first next year. They could offer the 3 1s. I think they're going to kick and scream the whole time because, again, that team has holes. But they need a quarterback in order to keep Justin Jefferson in the building.
Yeah.
So that is a priority. They have a gold jacket wide receiver and they need to keep him there. So I could see it happening, them going to 11. If they call the Giants at 11, and they're 11, and the Giants are at 6, and they say, hey, we want to trade back up with you. What do you think about 11, a second, because I think they have multiple seconds this year too, a second and a second next year? Would you trade down to 11?
I would do 11 and 27 and a second next year, I think.
Okay.
Because they already have 2 firsts this year. They have
2 firsts, yeah.
They have 4
27.
and 27. So if they move back, they would end up having 11, 23, and 27.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I would see about the probability of that. That would still give them 2 first-round picks, and they would get more capital than they really need to still end up with Marvin Harrison Jr. And realistically, I feel like at 11, there's still a probability of Rome Odunze unless another trade happens. Which this is something that I have also been on the record saying. I think Rome Odunze is a receiver that makes a lot of sense for the Giants because his body type, and granted, Marvin Harrison Jr. fits this too. Malik Neighbors is really the only one that doesn't. He fits the body type of something that the Giants do not have, which is just a big-bodied outside threat who's going to beat you in the air. He can beat you on jump balls.
Bryce Ford. Wait.
You've said this for 2 years now. It's just not there, man. I'm sorry. Undrafted free agent from West Virginia, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not happening. But it's the thing.
It was just last year. He tore his ACL. It's not his fault.
Okay, it's only 1 year, fine. But no, if you look at like realistically the receiver core, Isaiah Hodgins is got some size, but he kind of fell out of favor last year. And on top of that, he's also like a former practice squad guy who just kind of hit lightning in a bottle. Then you have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's undersized. You have Jalen Hyatt, who's undersized. Darius Slayton, who's also not the biggest guy in the world. He's fast, it's good, but not a big guy. So we have a lot of very undersized receivers, so it would make sense to want to go after someone who has size, can be that big threat. Because we have Darren Waller, but again, is he gonna retire? Like, please decide this week. Like,
please decide tomorrow.
So I don't know. That's where I'm at on it. You know, if you're at 6, you should really just go ahead and take Marvin Harrison Jr. unless someone gives you an offer that blows you away.
Okay, so then let me, because I know your feelings on this, but I want you to share with the class. Marvin Harrison's gone. Let's rewind. 4th pick is Arizona's. They take Marvin Harrison Jr. Too good a deal to pass up. 5th gets traded out. You have Joe Alt, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. Who are you taking and why?
I am still going to take Malik Neighbors. I like Rome Odunze a lot, and I like his I like his profile. I like his size. I like his strength, his route running, his hands. All of that is great. And realistically, I think if he came out last year, he would have been the first receiver off the board. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is an absolute freak. And Malik Neighbors is freak adjacent. He's like just underneath it. And that's the thing is, with Neighbors, it's his athleticism. He's probably the most athletic and most explosive prospect in the draft. So I still feel
He's so freaky.
I feel like that's the route that you have to go. And I know a lot of Giants fans are like, offensive line. I was like, I can't in good conscience do that when you have put so much high end, and I'm talking like first 3 rounds, high end draft capital into this offensive line. You've also gone ahead and put some free agency work into this offensive line and brought in a new offensive line coach this year because you identified that Bobby Johnson is part of the problem. I can't, at this point, Carmen Brasillo, who's come in, you have to tell him, fix it. Fix Evan Neal, make him a person. And if you can't, that's why we brought in Illuminor, who was a guy that you made from a nobody into a passable right tackle last year. Like, that's why we brought him here with you. So that way you have someone that you're familiar with if for some reason you can't get Evan Neal to work. So I think that is realistically going to be the plan. You can't go offensive line because you've, in the past couple of years, you've got the investment of Andrew Thomas, you've got Evan Neal, you've got John Michael Schmitz, even some of the other guys, like you got
Ozudu was a
third round pick, I think.
Yeah.
There's too many guys that you've just invested this higher end capital into that you got to the coaching staff has to make. Got to turn. Was it chicken shit and chicken salad? It's time to figure that out. I think that's how the statement
Time to
goes.
turn chicken shit into chicken salad, guys.
Yeah,
you heard it here first. That's our first shirt. Turn chicken shit into chicken salad.
I wish that was the statement that I came up with. That is an actual saying. I might have gotten it wrong, but
well,
I think
now
that's
it's
what
yours. Yeah, I mean, I second it. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. I was listening to Talking Giants today. As a Giants fan, I listen whenever they release. Shout out. And Bobby said that if it was back in the Jamar Chase draft and it was Jamar and Marvin Harrison Jr., he would take Marvin Harrison Jr. And that, to me, that dude knows more about football than I'll ever know, and I'm okay admitting that. And
especially offensive line.
Yeah, he's so smart. Yeah, I love listening to him break offensive line stuff down.
Shout out Bobby Skinner.
Bobby Skinner, you know your shit, man. I love it. You teach me. Yeah, it's definitely him, but I love Neighbors. I've told you from the beginning, I really like Malik Neighbors. I didn't think that Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to fall past the Patriots. I thought at 3 they were going to take him because that would immediately give them a legitimate receiving threat, and that has cooled completely. And I still think that pick is a slam dunk for New England.
Yeah.
Give Jacoby Brissett the stud of the future and see what happens. You're not going to win your division next year. It doesn't matter how good he does, how much he balls out. You're not winning your division next year. You are not going to be high in the standings. Why not go get the fucking dude at wide receiver that's going to be in is projected we don't know, but he is projected to be in the talks of Justin Jefferson. He's in talks to be the Mike Evans kind of guy, consistent year after year. He's up there, he's doing it, he's doing the thing, it's just, why not go get that guy? Why not go get that Jamar Chase type? Go get that, just do it. It's right there for you. And they're like, no, we need a quarterback. All right, man. Sure. Who's he going to throw the ball to?
Yeah.
Is Bobby Kraft going to go out there and start running curls? Because that's what's going to have to happen.
No, he's going to specifically run some rub routes.
He is going to rub routes, and he's going to ask for that court documentation to be sealed.
Oh God, that was good. I'm proud of myself for that one. It's terrible, but
that was good. Anyway, I love this position for the Giants because I feel like this is the first time in a long time that I've gone into the draft and been like, I don't know what they're going to do. Last year, you and I really kind of locked in on Joey Porter Jr. I still would have liked that pick. I'm not upset about the Deonte Banks pick. Like him a lot. I think he's going to grow, and I'm excited to see what he becomes. But I'm excited this year because I truly have no fucking clue what's going to happen. And that is so exciting for me as a fan.
Same. I'm very much invested in it, and I'm just excited. It's one of those things that if we end up going the quarterback route, it's going to be one of those things that I think is going to be very, very electric, as far as the buzz around the city. But I also don't think that there's, for me, I don't know that there's value for, if you don't get the guy that you want by trading up, I don't know if there's value of trading back into the first round to try and get the guy. I just don't think that with all the other areas that we have needs, that it makes sense. So
Yeah, if you don't, I'm kind of the mindset that if you don't get the guy you want, if you're not able to trade up and go get Drake May, who we believe to be the guy, I've said since the end of the season, before the end of the season, that Drake May was the guy. If he's not the one that you're going to go off after, run it with what you got, or take my dude Joe Milton in the 6th round just to see. Like, he's got all the tools, all the intangibles. Like, let Dayball see if he can do something with that and go from there. But no, I'm not taking another dude if you don't get your guy in the first round, except in this instance. I like Milton's tools. He's very Josh Allen-esque in the athleticism, the giant arm, like, just does not know how to play true quarterback, and like Brian Daboll fucking gets that shit.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a really cool thing to see in like that progression. But before we get out of here, I wanted you to run me through some of your other peeps to look at later rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and then day 3 on Saturday for 5, 6, and 7. Even though the Giants will not have a 7th round, don't have a 7th round pick currently, they could get one, I guess.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with the possible day 3 guys, because I really only have 2 of them listed.
Sure.
In the fact that running back out of Notre Dame, Audric Estime, I'm probably saying that name wrong, but he's only 20 years old. He's a bell cow for Notre Dame. Like, he was much more of a bruiser back, rather than like a out catch the ball out of the backfield kind of guy. And I feel like that would complement Singletary very well. He was brought in for I think he was brought in for a 30 visit. If not, he was brought in for a local pro day. But I like what he brings a lot. And I think that he could be a very fun one to look at. The other one is a tackle out of Houston, Patrick Paul. I could see him going in round 4. But I could also see him going in the 2nd round. He's one of those ones that he's kind of graded all over the place. But my 2nd, 3rd round picks, actually, I will say one more who could be on day 3, but I'm thinking he's going to go on day 2. And I'm Orlando based. I'm a UCF alumni. I got to shout out my boy Javon Baker from UCF. If we don't go wide receiver in the 1st round, I think Javon Baker would be a very strong candidate to bring in, whether it be in round 3 or if he falls into round 4. I like Javon Baker a lot, and I feel like he's somewhat under the radar as far as other receivers go. I can look at him and feel like he's going to be a Gabe Davis type. Similar receiver. He's got that kind of ability. He's got good hands. He's a good route runner. I don't think he's got breakneck speed, but I do like what he has to offer. But then the 4 names that I have here that I think are the ones who we're most likely to see in rounds 2 and 3 for us. Christian Haynes, guard out of UConn. Again, we've talked about Bobby Skinner and Talking Giants a lot. They were at the Senior Bowl in Alabama. Christian Haynes was the one that lit everyone up. Like, he was the offensive lineman that won the weekend. And for a guy from UConn, like, not really playing the highest quality of football, it's important to see him going up against that better competition and really showing out. So Christian Haynes, guard out of UConn's one. 2 cornerbacks to keep an eye on, because we need cornerback help. I got Max Melton from Rutgers. He was brought in for local pro day. Seems like someone that really everybody likes in round 2. I also have TJ Tampa from Iowa State written down. I think Jordan Reed put out his 7-round mock today, and he actually had us TJ Tampa mocked to us in the second round. When the draft cycle started, before pro days and everything started happening, before combine, all that shit, TJ Tampa was looked at as being a first round prospect. So he's fallen a little bit, but I mean, 47 I think is still a really good value there. And we've said it multiple times over. We need safety help. This is not the strongest safety draft, but there is a couple names that I like, and one of those being, if you could get him in round 3, Cam Kinchens from Miami. I think he's got some real good signs of being a quality player. I also like Javon. I think it's Javon Bullard from Georgia. He's another name that I do like. And
well,
then
he's
I know
going to go to the Eagles.
Yeah, probably because he's a Georgia defender.
Right.
That's just how it works. If you play defense and you went to Georgia, the Eagles want you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's really how I feel. I still think that it would be interesting if, depending on how things fall and shake out, if there was a Patrick Surtain offer that came from the Broncos, just because of the fact that, I mean, that he still has his 5th-year option, and he's on the last year of his rookie deal right now, which he's getting paid, I think, like $5 million. Like, that's not anything that's going to break you or make anything difficult for you to open up cap space. Justin Pugh did a video that I didn't necessarily agree with the most of it, but when he put that video out, one of the things that he started with was talking about the kind of restructuring and stuff that can be done on the contracts. It's not hard to move money around to make room for a guy that's making like $5 million a year. So with that being said, you go ahead and you clear that space for this guy. And yeah, because he's an all-pro multiple times over, multiple-time Pro Bowler, his 5th-year option's expensive because there is a scale to it. And the fact that he's not a regular, what is it? He's not like just because he had, I think it's, if you're an all-pro, or if you're I think if you've been to one Pro Bowl, it's a higher rate. If you've been to more than one Pro Bowl, it's an even higher rate. So he's on that level of his 5th-year option's huge. But it's worth it to pick it up for a guy like that. And if you're also going to be getting him for just kind of moving back in the draft, and you could still get like a wide receiver or something like that, that's just really great value. So I find that to be a very, very, very intriguing prospect if it was A, true, and B, offered. Because again, everything out there right now, I got to take it with a grain of salt, because there's also rumors right now that the Chargers want to trade Justin Herbert. So like,
Antonio Brown, you son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch. Well, guys, that does it. We somehow managed to talk about the Giants, the Patriots, the Cardinals for an hour. So if you enjoyed this, if you had fun listening to us chat, do us a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll give you guys the bubble thumb. There it is. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We appreciate it. We wanted to do this with the boys, but as you know, like, our lives are a little crazy right now. You know, they're daytime people sometimes, and they have babies, and I got another baby on the way. And so we're just trying to squeeze this in where we can. My baby might be coming like tomorrow. We don't know. So
and all I have is a dog. So like, they say, "Hey, Mike, are you available?" I'm like, "Yeah, probably."
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, probably. But if you do like what we're doing here, you are having fun listening and or watching us just talk about the stuff and be dumb. We talk about Robert Kraft and his maybe definitely rub and tugs. Just like I said, like, comment, subscribe, let us know. If you made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out. If you didn't make it this far, you didn't hear this, and go fuck yourself. I love all of you deeply and truly and madly, just like Savage Garden. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you all back here next time.